Good afternoon, everyone. We are here conducting an interview today to explain to, parents, student athletes, the importance of getting all of the resources and understanding all the resources that is available to them at this time. So today we have two agents today from Glory to Glory, and we're gonna let them introduce yourself. So if Antoine, you want to start and introduce yourself, and then Jeffrey, you go right after.
No, hello everyone. My name is Antoine Hyman. I'm an agent for Glory to Glory Sports, and just very, very pleased to be here today to answer your questions and to get this conversation started.
Hey everybody, my name is Jeffrey Venter. I'm also an agent of Glory to Glory, and I'm very excited to get the information out there and to talk about the things that we do with the agency.
So as I mentioned off camera, before we even get into what Glory to Glory is, Antoine, I want you to talk about how did we get to this point where college and high school athletes can now make money and get resources off of their name, image, and likeness. How did we get to this point?
Well, I think that there's been an ongoing conversation or an issue in relation to the amount of money that collegiate sports brings into their institutions. I think that that's been going on for probably the last 15, maybe 20 years. I think Ed O'Bannon was one of the first to sue, trying to monetize his own name, image, and license. Ed O'Bannon from UCLA, bringing to everyone's attention. He was one of the first I remember bringing to people's attention how much money these colleges and universities are making in relation to, what they're actually giving the actual athletes. And I think that over the past few years, there's been a massive shift, specifically as it relates to the NBA and creating new leagues, like in relation to G League, in terms of, these outside leagues putting pressure on NCAA to loosen the purse strings and share the revenue by looking to pay these athletes more money to come participate with them than to actually in essence go to college. And there's been a number of contributing factors, but if I was to identify a few, those are the few. And because of that shift, it's brought us to where we are now. In terms of, on the cuffs of the average college, student athlete, getting an actual salary upon coming into the colleges and universities.
So Jeff, one of the things that I wanted you to touch on is now that we're at this point that Antoine just mentioned, where college and high school kids can now get NIL deals, name, image, and licensing deals. Explain to some of these parents and athletes what exactly is an NIL.
So NIL stands for name, image, and likeness. And it's basically, provides you a student athlete an opportunity to make money off their name, image, and likeness. And that's really basically what it is. And these kids, these student athletes, have been for years now been exploited and not able to make money off it. And I think NIL provides that opportunity for them to come in and take advantage of their name, image, and likeness.
So Antoine, we have talked ad nauseum about this, but I would like for you to explain again to parents, piggybacking off what Jeff said, why is it important for student athletes to understand the resources such as NILs that they have available to themselves?
Well, because there's been it affects their ability to matriculate to the next level. And there's been a seismic shift in the recruiting process as it relates to NCAA. And so let me give you a quick example. About a week and a half ago, Adidas went ahead and made an announcement that they're going to give a name, image, license deals to every athlete that goes to the schools that they have existing contracts with. And what's going to happen is Nike, Under Armour, other sneaker companies are going to follow suit. And what this is going to do is this is going to lay a foundation of a baseline salary for the actual athlete. And so it's important for athletes to understand what's their value going to these schools or what have you. And that's one of the reasons why we have an agency, to basically, in essence, help these student athletes identify what's their actual, worth, what's their actual value going to these schools. And majority of our parents and majority of our student athletes are just not aware, how much money, if they are fortunate enough to, get a Division I opportunity, what is that worth? Historically, it's just been worth, the full scholarship. But now we're in a situation where, that number is going to continuously grow. And so our parents need, help navigating that.
So now we're at the point now where you kind of touched on it, but Jeff, what is Glory to Glory, and why is it important for parents and student athletes to have a sports agency at their disposal?
Great question. I think I'll be able to answer, and then Antoine can jump in. My testimony, and I'll just jump right in. My testimony is as a parent. When I was, I have a Division I football player, name is Jamari Venter, and NIL was just introduced, and Jamari was someone who had a lot of social media, but we really didn't know how to navigate that. And so an agency like Glory to Glory would be able to communicate that, be able to guide you through that information with the parents, and as well as the student athlete, to make sure they're not being taken advantage of. So I never jumped into the NIL. It was just starting because we really didn't know how to navigate that.
Antoine, what is your take on why parents need a sports agency at their disposal?
Well, it's for a number of reasons. Number one, the seismic shift, and like I said, the recruiting process. And the sad part about it is it's structured to keep them in the dark, to continue to exploit them. As this game is changing, there are three major factors, as I see it, that is affecting this seismic shift I'm talking about in relation to NCAA in the recruiting process. Number one, in 2018, the academic requirements that is, has a massive impact on, Division I athletes being able to get to the next level. That's changed dramatically in terms of, you happen to have a 2.3 in your core, in your core electives, which is, English, science, social studies, and math, all 4 years. So that means that you have to have over a 2.3 in order to play Division I sports in all of those subjects each and every year. So that means if a freshman comes in and they need to get adjusted to school, and they're having a hard time for whatever reason, and they fail math or whatever, any of your subjects at the end of it, and they just eliminate their possibilities to play Division I sports. Most of our athletes and parents are not aware of that massive shift. The other one is automation, right? When you start talking about automation in terms of, platforms, in the sense that, when these kids, whether it be football, whether going and playing in 7on7s, whether it be basketball and AAU, and the way that is structured, meaning that if you're not on a sneaker team, Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, or what have you, your chances of playing Division I is slim to none. A lot of Division I schools rely on these sneaker teams to go out in the community and identify the talent that would be able to be, that could play at that level. So if you're not on one of those teams, and it's only a finite amount of kids that are on those teams. If you're not on those teams, you have really limited to hardly any chance to play Division I sports. A lot of people are not, specifically in basketball, a lot of people are not really aware of that. And so that means that if you're playing on other teams that are not, or what have you, if you're not on a platform that are as quickly as able to identify your transcripts, because that's the biggest issue. We just talked about the grades in 2018. If you're not on a platform that is able to identify your transcript along with your actual ability, you're invisible. And so that's the second major reason. And then the third one is NIL, what we just got finished talking about, in relation to, Division I athletes, being able to identify your actual value. That's extremely important, to be able to identify, how much money, can you get, should you get, what's your actual numbers based on your social currency, that you're able to extract based on, being able to monetize your name, image, and license. So I'm hoping that answered that question. The reason why an agency like ours is completely necessary, is to help our student athletes along with their parents navigate this process, and enlighten them, educate them to how dramatic the terrain is now getting into the next level.
I just wanted, before you guys wanted to add on to this one thing that we did not mention. Another reason why our agency is relevant is because a lot of parents, they feel, they expect the coaches to be able to help them get to college. And they rely on their head coach to believe that they have that connection to these schools. And that's just not the case. I experienced that. I had a coach when I was playing high school football. I had a coach, his connection was Plymouth State University in New Hampshire. And I felt as though I was a better player than a Division III school, Plymouth State. But that's where he wanted me to go, and that's where he was trying to place me. And then I had another experience as a parent to my I mentioned Jamari earlier, where he was one of the top players in Massachusetts, his running back position, and he went to their academy, and he had a head coach that had no connections at all, and I had to do the recruiting tour. And colleges, as they don't look at you as a parent, as a coach, they look at you as a parent, so they're not listening to you the way they need to listen. G2G would be able to provide that relationship and make that connection between the school, the coaches, and the parents.
One of the things that we have discussed, and one of the unique things about Glory to Glory, is basically it gives an athlete who is under recruited the opportunity to be recruited. So Antoine, what are some of the tools that Glory utilizes that can help some of these athletes who feel that they're under recruited be seen by these coaches?
I think that's an excellent question. I want to kind of piggyback off that major point, that powerful point that Jeff just made. Let me just talk about what he just got finished saying. Most of our coaches, if they do have a relationship with a collegiate coach or what have you, it's probably one or two, and they become feeder systems to those schools. They don't have a relationship with every single college in America. I mean, so when you go to these institutions, and a lot of our parents are not fully aware of this, they go and they trust and they hope that parent, that coach, whether it be AAU, whether it be high school, what have you, have connections. And the reality is that they don't. They are stipend. A lot of times they're just stipend men and women who enjoy the sport and want to be still connected to it. And what Glory to Glory does is we are connected to platforms. One of them being NCSA, Next College Student Athlete. which has a connection to every single college in America. And these platforms are necessary evils, I like to say, because they allow prospective coaches to be able to identify quickly if the kid is a wonderful match for that institution, socially, academically, and then, you know, from a skill set standpoint, you know, it gives them a resume. But the biggest thing on the resume, like I was just talking about, is the transcript. Because what happens is most of our parents, and Jeff was just speaking about that as a parent, and I understand this, is most of our parents, we pay an enormous amount of money to participate in, like, whether it be from football, 7-on-7s, baseball, different situations, AAU, and, you know, basketball, the AAU. It's an enormous amount of money, hoping that these, you know, the people that we're empowering is going to be able to help our kid get to the next level. And the reality is that they, you know, that they're in it for their own reasons. They're not really paid to make calls or to really go beyond the call of duty. What they do is they put the talent out there. And if you play well enough and someone is there and they have interest, they'll answer questions. And again, a lot of our parents are just not aware, you know, of this. This game is structured to keep them in the dark. And what ends up happening is they end up spending an enormous amount of their money. And at the end, no one ever comes and say anything to them. And they get frustrated because it doesn't end the way in essence that they hoped or, you know, dreamed that would happen. And getting connected to us, you can hold us accountable. This is the first time you have an agency for student athletes where you can hold us accountable to get your kid to where you're in essence getting. It's not ambiguous in any way, shape, or form. You are a part of the journey where you can see in real time what's the level of interest. You know, where are you? Whether it be freshman throughout senior year, or actually seventh grade throughout senior year, you're able to identify in real time what schools are watching you. Where you're playing and what you're doing. What is it doing for you in real time? That's, to me, priceless. And
it is. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Forget it. Go ahead.
No, and that's why these types of this agency is relevant. Our AAU organizations have been exploiting our kids. And it's about to be exposed because of the massive shift that I was talking about earlier. You know, the consumers are going to be, whenever you start paying people a significant amount of money, people are going to become educated to how they can get that money and what it takes to get there. And so we're going through this. We are basically, in essence, pioneering as an agency this transition and helping kids and as well as parents, you know, navigate this new process.
Absolutely. And it's just baffling to me, you know, and I have to understand that it's still in its embryonic stages, but how little parents actually know, and even how little players actually know, you know, the opportunities that's available to them. Now, I wanted to ask both of you a specific question. I have this is from a personal experience, but I think this experience can help, you know, other people who are going to watch this interview and say, oh, maybe I think my son or daughter could benefit from this. I have this wide receiver, this kid. He's not a highly recruited kid, but I asked him, I jumped into his DMs and I said, how's your recruitment going? His exact answer was, I really don't know. He's in the 2024 class. He said, I really don't know. My coach is handling all that. So the question I have for you, Antoine, is what response would you feel would be appropriate to that young man who was letting his coach handle all his recruitment? Now, you kind of touched on it earlier, but I think having this more specific scenario will help parents understand, like I said, the opportunities they have available through Glory to Glory.
I think that's a wonderful example and a wonderful question, because here's the problem, right? The problem is that this kid probably went to a school when the coach was recruiting him. He was telling him that all of the things that he could do for him, all of the opportunities that he could help provide for him. And this is a part of the actual problem. And this is the problem that we would need to identify, is that, you know, when he went to recruit him or what have you, he was saying one thing, and this is what they do. You know, they say we can do this, or we had kids and we were able to place them here. And when this kid used to play for us and we were able to place them there. And it's that the reality is each kid has a different, unique story. Each kid has their own journey. They have their own story. And God, you know, God will open a door for this person in one way and have a whole nother way for this kid to get there. And, you know, in terms of opening that door. So to answer your question about what you're talking about, it sounds like this kid is falling into victim to what we just got finished talking about, because let's say the coach does have a relationship with another coach that's at the collegiate level or what have you, that's his best friend, or what have you. The issue is that coach at the collegiate level, all right, has his own team. He has his own, him or, you know, he or she has their own teams. They have their own needs. Their needs that varies from year to year. They may need a center one year. They may need, from a football standpoint, they may need a running back, you know what I'm saying, this year. They may not need, so the needs shift from team to team. If you're only locked in, if that coach is only locked into a finite amount of coaches, and it's only a lot of times 2 or 3, if that's at the high level. If they're only locked in, then they only have a limited amount of opportunity to give exposure. You may have the best player, right, in the state, but your only connection is to this coach, and he doesn't need that player. He doesn't need that player services or what have you. And so now you're not aware of this. You just put blind trust based on what was sold to you initially, that they can in essence do this. And the reality is, and this is what I was talking about, we're in this gray area of where consumers, student athletes, you know, are going to start to become more educated and, you know, what it takes to get to the next level. And an agency like Glory to Glory would help this kid that you're talking about, because we would be able to broaden his exposure in terms of, you know, levels, and then just dip, you know, being able to fit the proper need of coaches across the spectrum. And I think that right there would give this kid. Then the other thing is, see how he was able to say to you, I don't know, you know, my coach is handling that. See, they don't find out until junior year and senior year too. It's too late that, oh my God, they don't got nothing. You're not doing nothing. And that happens for over 95% of our athletes. They find out over junior year, oh my God, there's nothing there. And now you're scrambling, trying to figure it out. And that's what Jeff was talking about earlier. They found out like, oh my God. And then he had to, in essence, you know, try to figure it out at the last minute. That's what it sounds like it's about to happen to this guy that you're just, describing. But if he got connected to Glory, we would be able to identify where he is right now, put him on track. And when you went to go answer that question, he would be able to show you the colleges that have interest in him in real time. That's priceless. That right there is priceless. That's why most of our parents pay all of our hard-earned money to help our kids' dreams come true. You know, we need to really have real, you know, people that we can hold to the fire. Like, you said this, da da da. Where is this? And then be able to make sound decisions on, you know, are you good enough? You know, where is our level right now based on our actual interests? To me, that's priceless.
Absolutely. And Jeff, I'm gonna ask you this this next question. That's exactly what I wanted to say to him. The fact that you do not know how your recruiting is going is very alarming to me. And like you said, you're going to be standing left holding the bag with no offers. But see, Jeff, this is the next question for you. For a parent who has gone through this as a player and a coach and a parent, you have all 3 perspectives. So what do you say to that parent? And Antoine kind of touched on this before. What do you say to that parent? Because we know that the services that Glory to Glory offer is not free. We understand that. But when you're spending hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars on camps to get your son or daughter seen, you know, what is if I'm a parent and I say to you, why should I pay for Glory to Glory? Why should I pay whatever, money you guys are saying that I should pay for this tool and for you to help my son recruiting? What answer do you have for those parents?
I mean, that's a great question. First of all, I would say to the parent, we're taking all your doubts and all your questions away. Also, we are also you're taking the responsibility. You are holding us accountable, and you no longer have to worry about your kid blaming you or the coach, but you can hold us accountable for getting your student, your kid, your child into college. That would be the biggest thing. All of your question marks would be taken away. Also, we have parents and kids who think they might be better than who they are. They might be, they think they're Division I, and then they'll harp on that and they'll stay on, I'm a Division I player, and then all of a sudden it's too late. You will be identified right away, not by us, but by the colleges that work through NCSA. You'll be identified right away on what level that you play for, that you will be able to play in. On another hand, is we walk you through the entire process. You got us there. You get on NCSA, you just have the platform, but you have the agent. You have us who've been put in about 13 or 14, about 15 years of lifetime of helping kids get into school. So we walk you through the entire process. They will know every week or what's going on when it comes to where the recruiting is going. So the biggest, I guess, to close the question out is, all your questions would be taken away from you.
And I think that's a huge burden that's off their parents. And I always tell, just trying to kind of projecting going from high school to college, let's say you do get an offer, so for number one, you have an agency that's helping you get into college. And then number two, we're going to help you when you get into college to understand how to navigate the business side, assessing how much you're worth and all that stuff. Having the less of those burdens, I believe, like Antoine said, is definitely priceless. But the reason I brought up this one kid is because every camp I go to in Jersey, he's there. And he's not only there, he's actually putting in work. But we know how it works in recruiting, where coaches want a specific type of player. And so we talked about this before. There's a specific type of player that these coaches look for. And I know that he is not that mold, but he is killing the competition that he's going against. And then, Antoine, you told me something that was very enlightening. You said there's probably going to never be a coach that comes up to him and say, hey, I'm here specifically to see you. And this recruiting agency, this G2G, gives recruits, give athletes, parents the opportunity to take their child's recruitment into their own hands and not have to rely on two people to get you into this one college that you're probably not going to get into. So with that being said, I would like for Antoine, you to touch on, where do you see this going in the next 3 to 5 years? Where do you see this, how this landscape is going to shift? And what do you think is going to be the things that come from it?
I think that this is going to probably have one of the most profound impacts on our way of life across the board, in and out of sports. Because what this name, image, license situation is able to do we are able to utilize creative marketing in a way that has never been done before, with the social media and being able, and businesses being able to tap into the social currency as well as the influence of these student athletes and utilize it and manipulate it in a manner in which that's never been done before. I think that it's going to have transformative effects on our economy in various ways, in terms of creating a whole new baseline, like I said, in terms of these athletes getting paid. The salaries are going to grow dramatically. To answer your question specifically, in 3 to 5 years, in 5 years, I believe that the average player, Division I player, whether it be football, basketball, or to the top sports, the average players will be well over, multiple six figures. Most into the top programs like Power Five schools, most of those kids will be millionaires. To be perfectly honest, a lot of them are millionaires now, where they're taking advantage of these shifts. But right now there are probably about 6 to 7 states that allow high school kids to monetize their name, image, and likeness, or what have you. I think that is going to grow. I think that by in 3 to 5 years, majority of all states will allow their high school kids to make money off their likeness. I think it's going to have one of the most transformative effects that we've seen in human history as it relates to collegiate sports and in our society as a whole, because a lot of these kids are going to be they're getting paid now, but that's just going to grow. I think the baseline salary of an athlete, like I said, the top Division I is going to be $1 million, but then in the mid majors and the lower levels, these kids will all be six figures players as well. I really believe we're like you said, we're in the beginning stages of a massive multi-billion-dollar industry that is going to absolutely explode. And so I think, and then from our agency or what have, I think that in the next 2 to 3 years, majority of these AAU organizations, whether it be baseball, whether it be soccer, whether it be basketball, they're all going to turn into agencies. There's going to be regulation, an enormous amount of regulation. Right now, it's the wild, wild west. And so, but it's the wild, wild west to some extent. But but there is a massive movement right now of people taking advantage of this that are in essence laying the foundation and giving direction to what's going to happen. And so I anticipated, like I said, in the next 3 to 5 years, a lot of the BS that's going on now will be eradicated. It'll be regulated, and you're going to have kids making an enormous amount of money.
I agree with you 100% on it's going to definitely be regulated. If we look at the higher levels, if you look at the NFL, for a long period of time, first overall picks were making as much as vets that have been in the league for 10 years. Then the NFLPA said that's enough of that. And now we put in a rookie wage scale. I can definitely see a business willing to pay some 10-year-old $1 million to market their company on social media, and the government stepping in and say, hey, that's entirely too much money. We got to get some wage scales on that. So Jeff, the same question for you. Where do you see this NIL thing heading in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think the biggest thing for me is going to be used as a form of a recruiting tool to all the schools. Yep. I feel as though now you have kids who can now make a decision. If they don't get a scholarship here, they can but they want to go to that school that didn't offer them a scholarship. They can offer them a walk-on, and then get an NI deal that will pay for their school, for their school. So I think, to me, that's the biggest that I look at is, and not only college, these are going to have high schools are going to start using that as well. So yeah, we gotta we gotta get ready for this. This is coming down the pipe.
Antoine, you talked about that a lot too, about how it's going to shift with recruiting. I'm not going to give away some of the conversations that we've had about it, but to the parents again, because again, as I have seen in this short time, a lot of this is getting the parents comfortable and on board with what's going on with NIL and making sure they feel empowered, with their child and how the whole process is going to work. So Antoine, what I wanted you to talk about is how is this going to play into, like Jeff just talked about, how is it going to play into recruiting specifically without giving too much of it away? How is the NILs going to specifically, configure with recruiting? Because there's definitely, as Jeff mentioned, there's definitely a thing that's going to take place, but specifically, what are some specifics that's going to take place with that?
I was watching on Breakfast Club, Don Staley, who just won a championship for South Carolina Gamecocks, female basketball, women's basketball college. She was talking on the Breakfast Club, and she was talking about, what she did was she went ahead and all of her players, she legitimately that was interested, she lined them up with agents and to get these NIL deals, so that that's not something that she had to worry about, another college stealing her kids because they were able to get an NIL deal or a bigger NIL deal. It's going to drive the whole game, period, point blank. What's going to happen is the top colleges are going to get the best players because they're able to get them the most money. I mean, they're scrambling right now in order to, position themselves to be able to get, the top players right now. And so to answer your question, that's a massive change in terms of, before, when they went, their names, the players and the history all played a role in them being able to get top players. All of those were major parts of it, but now money is going to rule everything. It's not going to be really based on the history of these programs. It's going to be, the alumni and the business community coming together to, position and get and buy the best players. That's happening right now. It's not going to happen. It's happening now.
It's most certainly happening right now. If you go on social media, you go on the internet, you see all these NIL agencies popping up almost every single day. Like I said, we're in the embryonic stages of it, but it is going to rapidly grow faster, and bigger and bigger. And if you are not up on this and you have an athlete, female or male, who you believe has some promise, it will behoove you sooner than later to get ahead of this and understand the opportunities that your student athlete has. Me personally, I'm all about my student athlete. We all in this interview have been student athletes at one point, and we never had these opportunities. We could never dream of this, so empowering and educating our parents first and foremost, then our student athletes on the opportunities and resources that they can potentially have and currently have at their disposal, I believe is priceless, and Glory to Glory can definitely help, facilitate that process. So Jeff and Antoine, thank you for this interview, but we want to just get some closing thoughts. Jeffrey, we're gonna start with you. Do you have any closing thoughts before we close this interview out?
The closing thoughts I have is just to reiterate how important our agency is compared to, I think with Glory to Glory, we have a lot invested in our community, in our kids, and we, genuinely would like to help our student athletes get what they deserve. They want, whether it being the type of school or the type of NIL deal. And so I think that's what we are here for. We're genuinely here to assist our community, our kids, and our parents.
I think to piggyback off of what Jeff is saying, one of the things I want to reiterate is this. The game right now is structured to keep you in the dark. It's just structured to keep you in the dark, because the people that sold you to get connected to them, it has to navigate this change right now that's happening. And most of them don't really know how to navigate, because to be perfectly honest, they were frauds in the first place. And all due respect, just keeping it a buck. And so there is a necessity, whether you recognize it or not, to have someone help you, again, navigate this new terrain in terms of extracting your exact value, what is necessary, helping you identify your level and the correct collegiate fit, and just getting to the next level. So right now, what the biggest thing I would say is, I think that is necessary for us to really ask questions, real questions like, what is your, if you ask a coach, okay, you're handling the recruiting, what are the top 5 relationships that you have? Do you have these people's telephone number? When you start asking specific questions like that, then you'll get a sense on, where your kid is and what opportunities lie. And I think we just blindly trust. We need to stop that because the game is shifting. There's a lot of money to be made. And so that it requires you to re-educate yourself. I think that's the thing that I would like to, just my last closing thoughts.
Absolutely. And my last closing thought, as I'm sitting here thinking about it and constructing things in my brain, I personally feel like this gives smaller colleges a better opportunity to recruit bigger athletes. Now, if I'm Alabama and I'm recruiting against University of Albany, if I'm a recruit and I know University of Albany could give me 6 NIL deals as opposed to the 2 that Alabama got me, I mean, that's a lot to have to consider and turn down, especially when it can help you, your family, and a lot of the people around you. These are, opportunities that you just can't sneeze by just because of like you said, Antoine, just because your name is Alabama or Duke or anything like that, I'm going to automatically go to, like, no, are you going to sweeten, the pot for me, like this smaller college is doing? So I think it can change the recruiting landscape in that aspect too. But this has been a fun interview. I appreciate, both of you guys for offering, your expertise and trying to help parents and student athletes. The last thing that I always do and make sure that we do is we need to plug in where parents and athletes can find Glory to Glory on what social platforms.
Well, we're on all social platforms, but if you go to g2gsa.com, you'll get a plethora of information that would allow you to see the services that are necessary. And so, yeah, I think that is g2gsa.com.
Just to add on to that, there you will be able to sign up if you would like to have an interview with us. You can register right on that platform, and then we'll get your information and give you a call.
Absolutely.
Also, you can reach me. I have a lot of personal socials. I'm all over Twitter every day at edaniel77, and I can get you connected with both of these guys. We have frequent dialogue, so if you really wanted to do it sooner than later, I can definitely, connect you and pair you if you would like. So again, this has been a great interview, and we appreciate you guys for watching. We appreciate Antoine and Jeffrey for offering their expertise, and be on the lookout again for more interviews helping student athletes and parents educate themselves on the opportunities and resources that they have available to them.